I'll give it a minute to let everyone in. Welcome. Do join us. Excellent. Oh, Nora, last forum. Can you believe it?
No, really, I can't. I can't believe that COP is, what, a week away? A little bit more,
Really
tiny bit more.
9 days or something.
Yeah, hard to believe it.
Terrifying. When I saw that WhatsApp group chat starting up again, I was like, surely not. But yeah, here we go. Okay, so I think we are ready to get started. Welcome everyone to, yes, what we were just reflecting on is the last forum, the last Building to COP forum ahead of this year's COP27. And of course, once COP27 has actually happened, we'll then go on to start the Building to COP28 forums, which will happen in the new year. So do keep an eye out for those communications about that. And of course, everything that happens during the next few weeks. So let's get started. Our agenda for today is the same as the one that we hosted just a couple of weeks ago. We're really here to share with you the updates that we know about for COP27 and how buildings and the built environment is being represented. We actually can't possibly share with you all of the events that are happening because there's so many, but luckily we have our website and we can point you in the direction of the calendar, which is now live. And then we're going to update you on the Race to Resilience this time round. And we had an update on Race to Zero 2 weeks ago. And now we're going to hear from one of the Climate Champions team about Race to Resilience. And then a nice chunky piece of time for Q&A. Although as always, please do use the question and answer function or the chat box if you have access to it to send your questions through as we're speaking, and we're more than happy to answer those live as we go through. I think, Nora, we've only got you till past as well, so if anyone has any questions for Nora, then please do let us know as we go through, and we'll try our best to answer as many of those from Nora as we go. Okay, so first of all, welcome to you all again to this very last Building to COP27 forum before we all head to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. This forum is all about providing a platform for non-state actors, the private sector, cities, states and regions, and state actors being countries or parties to support the promotion of the built environment as a critical sector to achieve the needed transition to a resilient and zero emissions future. I'm Victoria Burrows from the World Green Building Council, and I'm here along with Nora from the Global Alliance of Buildings and Construction, and we're two of the organizations that make up the Building to COP Coalition, the largest network of networks, if you like, related to the building and construction sector and creating a more sustainable built environment. So these forums are an incubator for the Ambition Loop. We're all about championing the action from frontrunner businesses, cities and states and regions to help us increase the level of policy and frameworks that come from national governments and so on to create that ambition loop of action. So on these forums, you can expect to hear about industry trends from guest speakers. This week, it's just the three of us. We share updates on the Building to COP Coalition and any partner communications that we have, and insights to the campaigns, the Building to COP27 campaign, how Solutions and Human Settlements Day is developing, and other campaign targets such as the Race to Zero and Race to Resilience. And ultimately, we're here to unlock advocacy and collaboration opportunities to work together towards our shared goals for the sector. And so we hope to see many of you at COP. If you're going to be there, do let us know. Maybe Nora, you can help with dropping the link to the form where we've been collecting the responses and inputs from those in our networks about telling us what you're doing at COP. I know that some organizations are hosting events outside of COP entirely virtual and not physically within Egypt, so we'd love to hear about those as well. So without further ado, let's move on to the update of what we know. just to reflect again on what our strategy is for the Building to COP27 coalition for this year. The COP presidency of Egypt has set out its goals and visions for this year's COP with a focus on adaptation, resilience, climate finance, transparency, mitigation, and collaboration. And so the Building to COP coalition, made up of all the logos that you can see in front of you here, have then taken those goals and visions and slightly adapted the strategy that we had last year to bring the buildings and construction sector to COP, to demonstrate the role of buildings and action in achieving those goals and vision, and focus on the action and implementation of the sector already, and position it as a solutions provider to some of the biggest challenges that the world's currently facing. So how does that manifest itself? We are looking at ministerial events that are happening during the 2 weeks of the COP programme, lots of launches, lots of commitments, and many events at COP. I think it's something like 100 events at the moment on the built environment and buildings and construction, which is really exciting. There's the dedicated Buildings Pavilion, which we'll hear more about from Nora in a moment, and then celebrating those action initiatives through our communications campaign as well. So anyone who's not going to COP, we do have the buildingtocop.org website and our communications campaign, the hashtag #BuildingToCOP27. So you can absolutely get involved, share with us your stories, your examples of action, your case studies, and how you are contributing in those levers of change so that we can help share them at COP itself. The climate action calendar has been published, of course, and we are 10 very short days away from everything kicking off. There's the World Leaders Summit, which happens across the first 2 days of COP, and then each day has a theme. And some of the content within the plenary sessions and the pavilions are then tailored and curated to help sort of work alongside the theme of that particular day. And then that all culminates in the 17th of November on Solutions Day, of which green buildings, resilient infrastructure is highlighted as one of the key themes, and Human Settlements Day, which is being championed by the Marrakesh Partnership's Global Climate Action Team. So we'll hear more about the pavilion in a moment, but some of the headline events that are happening across the 2 weeks in relation to the building and construction sector. There is a breakthrough ministerial on the 11th of November, a housing and urban ministerial on the 17th, where the Sustainable Urban Resilience for the Next Generation, or SURGE, initiative will be launched by the COP presidency. And then, as we'll hear from Nora, 2 full weeks of events related to the building and construction sector from the Buildings Pavilion, with events being hosted by lots of members and sponsors of the Global ABC, linked to the daily topics of the presidency and those Marrakesh partner themes. There's then some events that are hosted by the Marrakesh partners in collaboration with the high-level champions, including the Global Climate Action opening and closing sessions, where we hope the built environment will be featured, but also some specific action events, including an event on circularity and buildings on the morning of the 17th of November. And then an implementation lab focused on the 2030 breakthrough outcome for mitigation. So that's the 2030 and 2050 dates for addressing carbon emissions from the building and construction sector. And an implementation lab on resilience, themed around 10,000 cities having actionable adaptation plans. And so that's all happening on the closing day of the 17th of November. And then in terms of the side events, there are lots of side events and events happening within the pavilions. And as I mentioned, it's something like 100 events so far happening across, purely for the building and construction sector, happening across COP. But there are some official side events, UNFCCC side events, including a session that the Building to COP Coalition are hosting with Habitat for Humanity International on future-proofing our homes and workplaces. And then some more sessions, including pathways to sustainable building markets through credible, comparable, life cycle-based information, achieving measurable climate benefits through innovative infrastructure investments in North America, and planning, design and development in the Global South, the how-to for people and planet. And that's just a selection of the UNFCCC side events that are relating to buildings and construction and the built environment and cities in general. There's many more, and that schedule has now been published. Those side events will be broadcast on YouTube. Many events will be broadcast on YouTube, and we're going to use our website and calendar to share with you the links of where you can access these events. And then in addition to that, there are other events happening across the Global Climate Action Hub, other pavilions. We know that there are sessions happening in some of the country pavilions related to buildings, the SDG 7 pavilion, for example, as well. There's events happening in the green zone, and there's fringe events happening outside of the COP area, but within Sharm el-Sheikh and happening alongside COP27. And the Building to COP Coalition are then hosting within the Buildings Pavilion some thematic sessions linked to finance, resilience, decarbonisation, and ending with a call to action session on the 17th of November. And all of that information will be on the website. The maps of the blue zone and green zone are now, of course, on the website, and you can access them. There's also an app for COP27 that has gone live, and a platform for those with accreditation to access all the different events that are happening and plan your time at COP. And then, of course, if you're unable to join us at COP this year, we have the content that will be on the Building to COP27 website. You'll be able to access our calendar of events and be able to see where you can access virtually and remotely some of the content. Our calendar of events shows the events on buildings and construction that are happening in the blue zone, in the green zone, the fringe events outside of COP, and the special events like the Marrakesh Partners sessions and the ministerials. Then it also has a breakdown per day that tells you about all the different sessions that are happening, the descriptions of those sessions, who's hosting them, who's speaking. And then if you click into those specific events, and shown on the right, it gives you the details, including the organizers, and that's where you will be able to find the links to access the live content once they've been shared with us. Okay, so we are full in event planning mode. Many of you may have received speaker requests from us, and they're still coming in thick and fast now that the schedules for the various pavilions are being confirmed. And if you do have any events, as always, that you're planning either within or outside COP, please do let us know so that we can publish them on the website. Okay, and with that, I'll hand over to Nora. Thank you, Nora.
Thanks, Victoria, for this fantastic overview. You can see that we have so much going on at COP27. Even if there isn't a dedicated Buildings Day, we are making everyday Buildings Day. We are coming in strong and fast on the links of the individual COP days to buildings, and we'll try to do the same at the Buildings Pavilion. So if you go to the next slide, Victoria. Before I go to the Buildings Pavilion, though, just a little update on the Buildings Breakthrough. You've heard me speak about this in the last forums as well. For those of you who are not yet familiar with it, the Buildings Breakthrough is linked with a breakthrough agenda launched at COP26, and it's being co-led by two countries. That's France via the Ministry of Ecological Transition, and the Kingdom of Morocco via the Ministry for National Territory Planning, Land Planning, Housing, and City Policy. And the aim is to rally countries around a common target and common metrics. There is a focus on both mitigation and resilience. We have had several consultations with country groups, and the interest is strong. The issue is the timing. It took a while to get the formal letters out, the ministerial letters. They've only gone out this month. So we don't currently now know if we'll have enough countries who will definitely say, yes, we are joining this by COP27, though the interest is strong. It's literally a matter of, countries need to take time to get their ministries, their ministers on board, and so on. Regardless, there are several moments at COP27 where we aim to place this ministerial, this buildings breakthrough. There are 2 ministerials, and Victoria already mentioned them, one on the 11th, the breakthrough ministerial, another one on the 17th. It's now, the name's slightly changed. It's now called Ministerial for Urbanization and Climate Change. Where likely the buildings breakthrough will feature, and also in the buildings pavilion. Though we can't say right now if we'll have an official launch or if an official launch might come later. I think I am now able to share the statement that is under consideration with countries, as we have started to contact initiatives to ask initiatives whether they are able to also endorse the statement and whether they are okay with being mentioned as one of the pathways that can be helpful for countries to achieving what we need to achieve. But maybe, Victoria, if you go to the next slide, and I'll say the statement then. Yeah, because maybe it's better if I first, for those of you again who don't know the breakthrough agenda, if I show you what happened at COP26, the breakthroughs that were launched: power, road transport, steel, hydrogen, and agriculture. If you read the statements there, they all have a couple of things in common. They're all with a 2030 timeline, and they all have this vision of flip the script world. That's what I like to call it, where essentially the sustainable choice is what's dominant, as opposed to now in many cases where, let's say, the carbon heavy choice is dominant. So it's really this flip the script, right? So that the new normal is different from what it is now. And we've taken the same approach for buildings and construction. The difference between what you see here is that for buildings and construction, we have been explicit in including resilience. So the statement that we're putting forth to countries and also now to initiatives, mainly, I mean, it's countries who are really the focal point of this. Initiatives we're asking them to be mentioned as pathways. It's really countries mainly, right? If near zero and resilient buildings are the new normal by 2030. Next slide, Victoria, please. Okay, that was on the buildings breakthrough. So I'll now switch to the buildings pavilion. We are seeing the buildings pavilion as a center of gravity for the buildings community at COP27. Obviously, there'll be plenty of events. Victoria's alluded to them. Some of them are core of the presidency, some are side events, some are in the green zone, and so on, that are in buildings. So not everything with buildings will be in the pavilion. That's completely normal and absolutely fine. But we are hoping to see this as a rallying point where the buildings and construction community can come together, have a coffee, hopefully see interesting events, have meetings with people and so on. In terms of facilities, we're having an auditorium, 2 meeting rooms, a social and exhibition space, as well as a recording and interview studio. This is happening in close collaboration with the Women Business Coalition. They are also co-host together with the World Business Council of Sustainable Development. And some of the resources are shared. So the studio is shared between the Buildings Pavilion and the Business Pavilion. The Business Pavilion is just across from the Buildings Pavilion. The pictures you see here, by the way, are from last year. If you go to the next slide, Victoria. Yeah, so what we have done is we have tried to link each day really with both the presidency topic of the day as well as the Marrakesh Partnership for Global Climate Action topic of the day. Our overall tagline for this year is Built for Tomorrow. And you can see that each day starts with Built for Tomorrow to or Built for Tomorrow by. So for example, on the 10th of November, Built for Tomorrow for a Resilient Future. On the 12th, Built for Tomorrow for a Just Transition, or on the 16th, Built for Tomorrow through Nature-Based Solutions. The 16th is Nature and Biodiversity Day. So trying to make that link each day and underlining how buildings are a critical enabler for all of these elements. On the right, you can see, I know it's a little small, but you can see the hosts, Global ABC, which in turn is hosted by UNEP, our co-hosts, our sponsors, as well as our collaborators. So this is in collaboration with the Building to COP Coalition, with the Global Buildings Performance Network, the Government of France, and the Marrakesh Partnership for Global Climate Action. Next, please, Victoria. This is a snapshot of what it will actually look like. As I said, the pictures you saw before were from last year. So first of all, we're having 3 hashtags: Buildings Pavilion, Built for Tomorrow, and Building to COP27. So do use those. Obviously, Building to COP 27 is also a hashtag for the Building to COP Coalition. This is to underline our partnership. We'll have thematic half days each day. So again, this idea of linking buildings with a daily topic through a dedicated half day that really is tackling that topic and shows the challenges and the opportunities. So for example, for materials, what are the current trends? What can we do? What is already being done? There'll be a selfie wall in terms of communication in the pavilion. So we're hoping to see many of you taking selfies and posting them. And generally the walls are printed with pictures that our members have submitted to us for use. And we are very, very thankful for that. We hope that they'll please everyone, as well as with facts and figures from our upcoming Global Status Report for Buildings and Construction, which will be launched next week, so just before COP27. Also, as I said, we have a shared studio, and we anticipate to start each day with morning coffee talks that are take the form of an interview, very short and snappy interview with our communication person on site. Her name is Mariana. You might recall her from last year if you were with us last year. If you are keen either to be interviewed or you know somebody who would be great to be interviewed, a real change maker in buildings, please let us know and we can consider that. We are especially looking for interviews from the region, given where COP is taking place in MENA and Africa. So we're looking especially from change makers in buildings and construction, whether they are public or private sector, doesn't matter. So if you have great ideas, we'd like to hear them. And we'll try to communicate the daily building at COP27 blast. So I'm giving an overview of what we are aware is happening in the buildings pavilion and maybe also beyond. And here you can see a snapshot of what will be our Just Transition and Resilience wall with the pictures and the facts and figures. Next slide, please, Victoria. Okay, this is very quickly, this is just logistics, where the pavilion is located. It's in the olive green part here of the blue zone. I know it's confusing, that whole zone is called the blue zone, but not all parts are blue. The reason why I refer to it as the olive green part is because in some parts of the COP27 website, it's referred to as Zone B and others as Zone D. So we don't know, but it's the same location regardless. Next slide. And this is where you see it in comparison to the other pavilions. So there's a little lane between the rectangle and the square. The square is the business pavilion, and there's a dead end there, the black line. So we're hoping that that will make for a nice, cozy zone, so to speak, between the business pavilion and the buildings pavilion. Next slide, please. And this is the floor plan. So auditorium, studio, and 2 meeting rooms. The auditorium is hybrid, so that's possible, and they'll be live streaming. The meeting rooms are not. So this is really only for in-person meetings. Next slide, please. And that's it from my side. I hope that was interesting. The pavilion schedule is bursting full. We've had a lot of demand, which is great, but also means that there's no more space for any additional events, unfortunately. We hope to see many of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Nora. No questions in so far, other than to ask if the slides will be available, which they will be, as always, and we'll also send around a link to the recording. Just before we lose Nora, I think we've got you for 5 more minutes. Just want to give everyone the option again to ask any questions if you have any about everything you just heard, the buildings breakthrough, the buildings pavilion, the schedule of events happening across the full 2 weeks, and the Building to COP website.
I think I see a question here of whether we have a plan for all pavilions because of need to know distances between pavilions. I don't, unfortunately. There are so many pavilions. I really don't. But you know, if you have a specific question, like from this particular pavilion to the buildings pavilion, I'll try to find that out. And then how can we take advantage of the meeting rooms for our side discussion? Yes, there is a, thanks Jennifer, there is a form for the meeting rooms booking. I can share that with you, and yeah, we can see. But last year, some meeting room bookings also happened on site. So if you don't manage to sign up online now, drop by during COP and have a chat. I'm not there, by the way, myself, but my boss Jonathan is. And have a chat with either Jonathan or with Bertilde. She's the logistics focal point for both pavilions, and see when is a free slot. Okay, I think those are the 2 questions that I can see. Oh, there's somebody
Thanks very
else.
much.
One second. Another from Nora. Another question for the panel events. Will we have remote participants? Yes, Nora. So as I said, the auditorium is equipped with hybrid. This means that virtual speakers can speak. That is possible. And there's also live streaming, unless you tell us that you do not want live streaming, which is also possible. So if we don't hear from events that they don't want it, then it'll be live streamed and there'll be hybrid participation. But it's just for the auditorium. So if you want to set up a meeting in the meeting room, that's in person only. Can you provide their info so we can contact them? Their info, Jennifer, I assume that you mean virtual info for the meeting rooms. Yeah, I'll do that.
Great. And great that you've got that hybrid connection in for the events as well, Nora, that's fantastic.
Yeah, price tag was high, I tell you.
Yeah.
Were you with the details, but yeah.
No, but I think it will be very well utilized. So thank you very much for providing that facility. Some of the pavilions do not have the capacity to have a hybrid involvement. It's strictly in person only and only being broadcast via YouTube. So really pleased that we've got that possibility on the buildings pavilion and to bring in more speakers, even if they can't physically travel. So I think that's great. Thank you. Another question on the capacity of the auditorium in the buildings pavilion. You, Nora?
Yeah, the auditorium can seat 50 people and six persons on stage. So meaning 5 speakers and 1 moderator max.
Yeah, and I spotted from the image that you have, the 3D image that you have, that there's a panel with windows. Is that right, or is that just a mock-up?
No, there should be windows, so hopefully it's a little less dark than last year.
Yeah.
I should say that, you know, it's a little hard to say exactly what is possible and what is not, unless we know explicitly, because last year, I mean, I'm going to say this just to manage expectations. Last year, we were able to bring in a lot of our own providers, like the AV personnel and so on, so that we had quite a lot of clarity. And this year, GL Events, that's the company that are managing the entire pavilion zone, are very strict, and you can only have the internally approved contractors. So I'm very hesitant always whenever I don't know something very, very explicitly.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Yes, it looks like there are windows, so I'm hopeful that it will be less dark.
Okay. Well, if there are, we'll put some photos on social media. Celebrate that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Well, thank you for joining us, Nora. If anyone has any further questions for Nora, please do pop them in the chat. I can follow up. I can send them afterwards as well. But thank you for joining us, Nora. I know that you need to drop off.
Thanks so much. And yeah, sorry, I need to leave you. Some country consultations await, but it was great being here. And yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. I won't see you at COP, but still fantastic to have such a great crowd there. So yeah, all the best.
Thank you for providing us with the buildings pavilion so we can make our mark on COP. Thank you, Nora. See you soon. Okay, so with that, I can bring in Neliswa. Hi there.
Hi, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Very, very exciting stuff. And yeah, looking forward to COP. So just to kind of remind everyone, I'm going to talk about the race resilience a little bit, and then I'll share a little bit about some of our deliverable at COP, some of the events that we're going to be running, and also talk a little bit about business engagement. So as a reminder, the Race to Resilience is a campaign, which is a sibling campaign to Race to Zero, which is increasing actions and investments into building the resilience of 4 billion vulnerable people and communities. And how we do this is through our partners who are committed to increasing resilience for 2.9 billion people, this compared to 2.2 that was announced last year at COP26. Currently, we have about 36 partners with a total number of 1,762 members working across 139 countries, with a big emphasis on the global south. So that is a little bit about the Race to Resilience campaign, and I will send through a link on the chat just to give you more about the campaign. Can we go to the next slide, please? So next one. Okay, so just to share with you in terms of the deliverables that the Race to Resilience has at COP. So firstly, we have the Race to Resilience dashboard, which is basically we trying to provide a place for all our partners to be able to report, and for that reporting to be showed publicly to increase transparency. I'm not sure if it was Nora at the beginning of the call who spoke about all the priorities for the COP presidency, and transparency was one of them. So the purpose of the dashboard and the portal is so that we can showcase the work that has been done by our partners. Secondly, what we're going to be showcasing is an updated Tableau with mapping that represents the populations at risk for hazards around the world. So this will help us to illustrate the main risks faced at each part of the world to inform decision-making and beneficiaries in terms of what type of action they should be driving. The third thing is that we've had a lot of our Race Resilience partners to kind of share their pledges, and their pledges were around specifically people pledge announcements. So we are hoping that at COP this year, we'll be able to demonstrate an increase in the ambition from the Race Resilience partners to be able to have the people pledge announcement. So you'd be able to see some of that. And then lastly, in terms of our deliverables, we've got the resilience metric framework, which is our reporting tool, which we kind of use as a way to measure impact of adaptation actions. So we'd be able to showcase that at COP this year in a few days. Next slide, please. Some of the events that we're going to be running, and these are just like the high level events, is that we going to be having a global campaigns reception. This is for all of our partners, including Race to Resilience and Race to Zero. And this will be just to be celebrating some of the work that they are doing, showcasing the work that they're doing, and just give a space for both campaigns to be in one space. The Adaptation and Resilience Implementation Solutions Agenda is one of the events that we are having, and it is to socialize the 2030 adaptation outcome targets. I will send a link as well on that, because at New York Climate Week, we did a bit of like a teaser in terms of, at that time, we were calling it Adaptation and Resilience Breakthroughs. So just to showcase that, that is something that we were doing. Well, it's an event that will be running at COP. So I'm going to paste that onto the chat so you can have time to look at it at your own leisure. We're also going to be having an event of solution stories, and this is essentially around being able to showcase the work and the stories on the ground of what our partners are doing, and just promoting the idea of storytelling in terms of resilience actions. I spoke earlier about the matrix framework. We're going to have an event around that. And this is just to showcase the need for robust adaptation and resilience tracking. And we will present our matrix framework and announce our public consultation that we will be doing, and also have partners share some of the experiences with working with the resilience framework that we have. And then lastly, we're going to be having a discussion on the adaptation and resilience metrics, exploring how NSAs are using the matrix framework and showcasing it even in much more depth. This is obviously alongside some of the events that will be happening at the Resilience Hub, which is going to be the home to Race to Resilience. And yeah, if any of you want to come and learn about the work that we are doing within resilience, the Resilience Hub can be your first stop. Now, what is exciting in terms of what we've done this year, if I can go to the next slide, please, is that this year, what we have done is create a track for businesses to be able to have pledge statements in terms of how they are going to be building resilience. So as I mentioned, normally how we work is we're working with our partners. So we've got these 36 partners, as I mentioned. However, what we've kind of encourage our partners to do is to say, if they have businesses that are within the membership, those businesses can do a pledge statement, and as a way to be also an official partner of Race to Resilience. So, and how businesses essentially join is that they have to find a partner within Race to Resilience to join, understand what that partner's pledge is to resilience, and then do a pledge statement as to how that business would be able to help that partner in reaching its goal. And then there's a process of how the partner can do a pledge statement and showcase a plan, and then we can publish the work that is done. But it doesn't happen like all at once. There is a whole process behind how businesses can be part of the Race to Resilience campaign. So yeah, we're very excited about the SATCOP. We're going to be launching, or not launching, rather showcasing some of the business partners that have made a pledge statement, and we will also be showing what kind of statements they have made in terms of being a Race to Resilience partner. So yeah, that's about it. I don't know if there are any questions about Race to Resilience, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
time.
Thank
you very much, Naliswa. No questions so far, but that's probably because they were so intently listening to what you were sharing there. So thank you very much. You know, we say within the Building to COP Coalition that we can't win the race to zero without winning the race to resilience. So really great to see it stepping up this year in terms of engagement and activities. If you're interested as well in knowing how the Race to Resilience and adaptation and mitigation relates to the building and construction sector and to the built environment, World GBC have published just yesterday, in collaboration with the high-level climate champions, the Climate Change Resilience in the Built Environment Guide, which provides principles for adapting to a changing climate at a building level, at a community level, and at a city level. So I'll also drop the link to that in the chat so that you can access that and take a look. So thank you very much, Naliswa. I don't think we have any questions coming through just yet. So we'll just kind of leave it to open questions. If anyone would like to ask any questions about the Race to Zero, the Race to Resilience, everything that we've talked about today, the Buildings Pavilion, all the content that's happening, the breakthrough. This is really just your space to ask any questions or share. I think I can unmute you. If you raise your hand, I can come to you to unmute you. If you would like to share anything that you're up to at COP that we haven't mentioned already, and please do take a look at the buildingtocop.org website for the full and comprehensive list of all of the events that are happening. And again, if your event isn't there yet, we may not have gotten around to loading them up. I think we're still working through the enormous list, but do let us know so we can make sure that your content is being featured. In terms of the call to action for the stakeholders of the building and construction sector, we're calling on GBCs to engage with your members, to communicate opportunities for engaging in campaigns like the Race to Resilience and the Race to Zero and all of the COP activities. So please do share the links to the website so that your members can access all of those events and resources. For the private sector to join the Race to Zero and now the Race to Resilience, to share your stories of ambition and action so that we can represent the sector and its level of progress and ambition at COP. For cities, states and regions, there's also ways to join the Race to Zero through the Cities Race to Zero, through the Under2 Coalition and others. You can find all of that website, all that information on the website, the links that are down there on the left. And for countries, of course, we are encouraging and calling on countries to be inspired by the action that we are demonstrating from the businesses, from the cities and from the states and regions to encourage more non-state actors to get involved and to be taking action, but to call on governments to match that level of ambition and incorporate ambitious climate measures and resilience measures within their NDCs, and ultimately to join the Buildings Breakthrough that Nora mentioned just a moment earlier. I do have a question for you, Neliswa, that's come through in the Q&A, if you don't mind.
Let me see that question. What are the priorities for the NDC enhancements that would advocate under resilience? Well, I would have to just come back with that from my colleagues that are working directly with that, and be able to share that when you're sending through the deck, then you can send through.
Yeah, of course, absolutely, very happy to.
Sorry, Jennifer, I couldn't answer right now.
No, that's fine, it's a big question. And there are some points within the resilience guide that I've just shared there, Jennifer, some that relate to cities, but also I think that could very easily be incorporated into NDC level enhancement, NDC level action for enhancement of adaptation across sort of multiple sectors and multiple scales of the building and construction sector. Okay. No more questions coming through just yet, and I don't see any hands raised. Please feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to come in. But otherwise, in the meantime, I can just refer you again to the buildingtocop.org website. Thank you for your interest in what we're up to in terms of getting us to COP27 and making sure that the building and construction sector is well and truly represented, and that the built environment is positioned as a solutions provider for both the adaptation and mitigation challenges that we have facing us today. Right, so with that, I think we can close this session. Thank you very much for your participation. We will be sharing the slide deck and the recording and the email addresses for myself and Nora and some other members of the team if you do have any questions or anything you'd like to share. And again, please visit the buildingtocop.org website, where you'll find all of the information about the events happening over the next few weeks. Thank you so much, Neliswa, for your participation, and we'll see you there.
Thank you very much. See you there. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.